Hello, Chris. Welcome to MAGICademy podcast.
Thank you, Johnny, for inviting me over. I'm Chris Du. I'm one of the co-founders here at Insightful. We also recently started Timely Grader. I was gonna have my dog jump on me, but now he's falling asleep. I was petting him so hard that I think he just felt very comfortable and fell asleep.
We'll say hi to Hugo later.
You go.
Yeah. Excellent. So, I think our audience must be very curious about, how when did you come up with this idea of leveraging AI to grade learners' assignment? Um, can you tell us like how everything started and when did you come up with this idea?
For sure. And obviously, with AI, it's been very much a discussion, I think, starting the start of this year. And we've actually been working in higher education for 4 or 5 years now. Time goes by really fast. I actually started Insightful, which is the group project tool that was right outside of the university. So I think it was 1 year after university I decided to start the tool, and during my conversations with instructors, they were all complaining about not having enough time to give students feedback. They wanted to give more formative assessment, more formative feedback. And at the time, there just wasn't any easy way or accessible way for a company, like us to utilize and build a tool that can provide feedback at scale. So obviously, when GPT 3.5 and 3 came out, I tested it out. It wasn't as good as it could have been, but everything changed when ChatGPT 4 came out, and we tested it, using some live real instructor assignments, and it was pretty mind blowing. I showed it to the instructor. He's like, "Did you write this?" No, I didn't. It was the AI. So that is when we had this ideas. There is a problem with instructors not being able to give feedback to a lot of skills, to a lot of students. But we thought we can definitely utilize GPT-4 and other upcoming models nowadays, right, and help instructors give feedback, especially those that have many, many students. So that's where the idea came from.
Mm. And I have just a kind of spin-off question. Do you think this type of technology can also apply to like workplace learning, or do you think it's only confined for higher ed?
I think there's, you know, many articles out there that I've read. Is there's a lot of applications. For me, obviously, I'm very close to education because I just came out of on my undergraduate degree, so I understand the applications. And I also know what instructors are needing. But will AI be used in a workforce development? Yes, I think the biggest and I think the first effect and the first, I guess, impact would be in education. The fact that instructors are teaching 500, 200 students, 300 students, that is where it can be very effective in a short period of time. And I think that's where the impact will be first. And then slowly move into workforce development. There's probably tools out there already, right?
Mm, excellent. So let's kind of bring it back to the use case.
Yes.
When you were using this AI to provide feedback for learners, can you walk us through a example of how exactly it works in your work?
Yeah, it's actually quite simple. Like you mentioned, common sense. We kind of just asked a lot of, I guess, TAs, what they did, and the general process is, you know, it's usually students who's taken the class before, so they kind of understood what it's all about. They need to know the assignment outline, right? That's the first thing, right? If you're going to provide feedback, you need to know what you're providing feedback on. And then you need the rubric, right? The rubric is important because it gives you a little bit of a benchmark and guidance in how you're providing feedback, what you're trying to provide feedback on, right? If there was no rubric, maybe one TA or one instructor will give feedback on grammar, another instructor will talk about creativity, right? So it's going to be all over the place, and you don't want to grade students, 10 students on this and then 10 students on that, then it becomes a really big mess. So that's why obviously we need a rubric. And I think a baseline or past examples, right? A lot of TAs will read past papers and how they were graded, what comments they were using, although the instructors were using. So they would just basically draw upon their memory, and maybe there's a templates that they can use. We need to feed that to the AI, so it's really being able to understand the assignment, what the students being graded on, assessed on, and how the instructor is giving feedback. So we basically just took that TA instructor relationship and really transferred it into a prompt. And right, it's not rocket science, common sense, and that's how we got the AI to give essentially feedback, but in a walled garden. Right, there's
Mm.
safety nets. There's it's guided in which what feedback to give, and I think that's how we transfer that TA knowledge to this process was the prompts.
Mm. I see. And how did you actually kind of measure the effectiveness of those AI feedback for students?
Yeah, so I think there's two ways to look at this. We I wouldn't say that we are able to directly impact students' improvements, either in grades or assignments, by just using AI. In my opinion, AI, the usage of AI is always paired with a human, like in this case would be an instructor or a TA. For us, it's very much about being an assistant to the TA or assistant to the instructor and helping them provide better feedback or provide feedback at all, because sometimes they just don't have the time to the students. And that is that relationship between timely grader, which is the AI feedback tool, and the instructor and the student. So we help TAs, we help instructors provide that feedback. They will make changes to the generated feedback that we have, and then they will provide that to the instructors. And for students, they get multiple opportunities to fail and make mistakes, learn from them, but they're able to upload drafts and get feedback. Whereas before you upload one version and that's going to get graded, right? So there's a lot more anxiety, if it's graded. But now, because you can put in multiple versions, there's less student anxiety. There's more confidence because, hey, so and so TA told me to improve X, Y, and Z, and I did.
Mm.
So I'm much more confident in handing my assignment and knowing that it's going to get a better grade because I've incorporated those feedback into my final paper.
Mm.
And I think more importantly, it's very much about how we're, the student advocacy is important. Obviously, we want them to learn. We want them to have just in time feedback so they can improve their, learning. And I think that's where learning comes from. It isn't to hand in the final product. It's how the student went from point A to point B to point C, and then ultimately handing that final version in. That is very important. Don't get me wrong. But more importantly, I think instructors, us saving some time and us being able to help them scale their feedback is even more important, because if you're just taking 50 students and everybody's assignment takes 10 minutes to grade or review, that's 500 minutes. You do it three times for an assignment, that's for an instructor, the math just doesn't add up. They just don't have the time. So by us allowing them to provide feedback at scale, I think that is the key, to also helping students improve and their efficacy.
Mm-mm. And in terms of assessing the effectiveness of the AI feedback, does instructor or the TAs have to come back to those AI feedback and reevaluate their feedback, or we
Yeah.
just kind of let the AI take the road, and then by
So
the time they
we,
submit the assignment, we can take a look.
yeah. So I think there's one keyword, and that's trust. Does the instructor trust the AI enough to allow students to get instant feedback? We allow students to get instant feedback, but also we allow instructors to review. And because it is a new tool, and I want to be completely transparent, a lot of instructors do generate the feedback, read it, make sure it's good, and then give it to the students. I had one instructor that said they want to use the AI in the background for 2 terms just to see whether the feedback is good, and then when they trust it enough, they get that the students can get that feedback instantly. So I think we're still at a stage where the technology is still new. There's still resistance to technology as well at a lot of universities. People are just saying, I'll give it a shot, but I'm not going to fully trust it. So I think we're at a stage where we need to be meeting the instructors where they are, which is helping them generate that feedback. they can review it, and when they trust it, they can let it run.
I see. Um, yeah, because sometimes AI hallucinates, and
Yeah.
even if we give them criteria, they can potentially still hallucinate. So yeah, I think instructor or TA reviewing it can be very helpful. Um, the next question would be, can you walk us through like a story where some learners get like a tremendously better improvement after receiving AI's feedback
Yes.
in terms of the quality?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually had this conversation with one of our instructors at MSU just a couple weeks ago, and I think again, yeah, I know this chat is very much about AI, but I can't leave the human aspect out of it. It's ultimately the human capabilities of the AI that improves students' behavior. So in our example, we had one student who was, who wanted feedback, and then the instructor was like, "Well, how much time do you want me to spend on that feedback?" Maybe 15, 20 minutes. Okay, we have 50 students. And then you just multiply it. And then the student's like, well, I see if we can't necessarily get multiple rounds of feedback. And it's not possible. So when he used the tool, obviously to generate the feedback, it caught things that he wasn't able to catch before. It was able to put all the feedback in a comprehensive manner that he never had time to do before. He gave it to the student, and the student found it very helpful because, it was either that or you get nothing.
Mm.
So, and I think it's the students that want the feedback that needs the feedback, right? If a student they don't ask for feedback, they're either a student or they don't care. If you give the students feedback that they don't care, they're not going to incorporate the feedback anyway. If it's the A student who doesn't need feedback, they really don't need to improve what their work is. But it's the students that really come to you and they say, hey, I need feedback. I want to learn. I want to improve. Can you spend some time? In most cases, instructors don't. But in this case, we were able to help that instructor provide that experience. So it is not the AI who's doing all the work. I really have to include the human here as the instructors, using AI, utilizing that scalability to allow for multiple rounds of feedback.
Mm.
And I hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also, maybe I think from the student side, when they get the AI feedback, they can also practice their critical thinking skills. You also mentioned about the trend analyses.
Yes.
At first we were talking about detecting cheating
Yep.
and all that, but yeah, people obviously care about cheating, but there's much more big picture on this.
Yes.
Can you tell us like
Yes.
when did you
Yep. Go ahead.
yeah when did that aha moment take place?
So, I mean, the first time we talked, I gave you that story of the online privacy essay that
Yes.
like it was about online privacy, and then 50% of the students all had that example where like their friend got catfished. That was where I got the idea. Oh, wait, the instructor basically did this manually. He made a mental note when he was going through all the student papers that I saw this example, and then I saw it again. Hang on a second, there can't be like 20. All the students had their friends catfish online, right? How bad is catfishing these days? So, that's where I thought we could really utilize AI. So, I've talked to instructors, pitched them the idea, and I think we've gone from using AI to detect AI to using AI to improve teaching, right?
Mm.
Yes, cheating is still a big part of it. I believe there's a lot of ways where we can find trends where potentially people are using the same sources, maybe they're using the same paragraphs, but more importantly, and my conversations with instructors have showed that they want to use these trends to identify maybe their teaching could also improve. It's almost like formative feedback for instructors. Maybe everybody's weak on this criteria,
Mm.
APA formatting, grammar. It could be one small part of the criteria that they're using in the book. Could be something like that, and they can basically apply just in time improvements to their own teaching methods. Maybe we'll spend one more hour on how to do APA formatting or MLA formatting. and instructors can utilize that experience to improve their own teaching.
Have you seen any instructor use trend analysis to kind of potentially improve their instructions, pivot their
Yep.
content and learning journeys afterwards?
Yeah, so that was the one where I talk about APA formatting, right? So
Okay.
we've had cases where instructors saw a trend in the feedback. Hey, improve your APA formatting. Your inline text citation should be. I mean, it's been a while since I did it, but your inline text citation should be X, Y, and Z. And then that feedback was over and over, in the student generated feedback. So he was able to kind of use that as a resource, or like almost like an ammunition to go to the class, say, hey, here's some resources to do inline citations for your next assignments.
Mm.
So I think that is where we're using trend analysis for good, not just necessarily for catching cheating, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, excellent. I'm curious. So with all that, what is your kind of prompting strategy?
Yeah,
How do you design like the instruction with the AI in your prompt to make sure that they provide consistently good quality feedback for students no matter what kind of assignments that they submit?
yeah. And if you remember when I was talking about the TA and how we kind of got this idea, I think it's very much that same workflow where we basically just took what a TA would have when an instructor gives some instructions, fed it to the AI. There's customization, there's flexibility. The prompt is dynamic based on how the instructor, how the assignment is, how many criteria there are, if there are any um, special. Sorry, Hugo is scratching. So if you can hear Hugo scratching, that is Hugo scratching. But yeah, so like we took all the what a TA will basically have and put that in the prompt that is dynamic. So depending on if there's a baseline, if there's an assignment, obviously there's going to be a rubric. If there are special things like specifications, the book that they're reading, readability levels, if you have a lot of international students, hey, maybe pay more attention to grammar, right? These are all the things that an instructor would tell the TA. And we basically just took that experience, put it into a web page where instructors need to put those in. And then the AI, you're basically teaching the AI as if you're teaching the TA, and it's going to give better feedback, similar way that you would do to a TA,
Mm.
to not mimic, but to provide feedback that is safe, that is more relevant to the assignment and to the obviously to the rubric and also to the student's assignment.
Mm. I'm curious, are these training sustainable? Like, for example, if you have trained the bot
Yeah,
to behave like a good instructor, they did behave like a good instructor
yeah.
5 days later or after time passes, would they still be like that, or you see some sort of like retro I don't know, like a
Yeah, and
mm,
I think that's one of the challenges of utilizing and building our tool on ChatGPT and using OpenAI's technology. Obviously, if they do something to the model, will it change us? Yes. But the good thing that they've done recently is all the new models that they preserve the old ones. So I think they also understand the importance of keeping things similar. We've had news where they're kind of dumbing down GPT-4. I think this is maybe a couple months ago where I read an article where it got less grades when they was given an exam. We haven't seen that in the feedback, maybe because the feedback that we're giving are pretty straightforward, and that is always a risk, right? Where you're using a AI tool and that model isn't what you've built, and you don't have control over what that model is going to be look like in the future. But obviously, for us, our goal is to keep things stable, consistent. We're looking at ways where we can incorporate maybe Bard. So if ChatGPT, I think OpenAI got DDoSed a few days ago. I don't know if you know this. They got DDoSed because they just released GPT and there was so many people using it. And obviously our servers was also down for a good 6 hours. Right now we're focusing on building the tool, but in the future to mitigate risks like this, we're going to have multiple models where we can plug and play. If this is down, let's use BART. If this is down, we can use one of the open source LLMs. Right now, GPT-4 is just the best. So we're going to build the best and provide the best feedback that possible. But in the future, when those models catch up, definitely have a way for us to incorporate those into.
Excellent. With all that being said, we've talked about some good examples of how the AI is helping students. Did you hear any surprise stories where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this where we need to improve, or things should have gone the other way?
Yeah, I think like that's one thing is hallucinations, for example. And you have to remember for anybody who's using AI is that it doesn't know everything that you know, like that an instructor would know. So this example actually came from a experiment I was running with a law professor, and so we were trying to provide feedback on citations. So I think like you have to write citations, you have to write case briefs, and the AI had one hallucination in which it gave recommendations to the students to use something called a blue book, which was a styling guide, but that blue book wasn't used in the state in which the instructor was teaching. So if that feedback had been given to the student, they might have erroneously used the wrong styling, even though the instructor, oh, I understood why I gave the feedback, but it's just that in our state, we don't use that style. So, and I think this is where, we still need a human in the loop, right? Having instructors to look through these things. And then, obviously we tweak the prompt where say, hey, don't use the blue book because we don't use that style in our state. And then obviously the feedback afterwards were fine. But that just shows that there's so many things that can go wrong. You can always make improvements to your prompt time and time over again. Yeah.
Excellent. So it's kind of like the data that they use could be the right
It's
one,
the
or
yeah yeah and the data that they use, again, this is what I'm saying, like it doesn't know all of the parameters, right? Even an I think the instructors, maybe they might know, the instructor might know all of the instructions, but there's no way for them to recall and make sure all of the different conditions are in the prompt. And that's one of the risks, and that's why we still need a human to look at it.
I'm seeing common themes here. Humans are needed, definitely.
Yes, it's not like we'll say we're not replacing instructors. I had
For
one,
sure.
like we were doing an experiment, and I know this is outside of the question, but we were doing an experiment with another university where they said, I want to the instructors, I want to compare what the AI is giving in terms of the feedback and what TAs are giving, and I want to see who's doing better. And I was like, well, hang on a second. What we're actually comparing is the feedback that the TAs armed with AI is giving versus the TAs who don't have AI. I think that's a very big distinction. We're not doing AI versus human. It's human with AI versus human without AI. I think that's the important story, um, lesson that I learned over just a short few months speaking with instructors about using AI in their classrooms.
Excellent. Good reminder. What are some challenges, like ethical challenges? Any sort of challenges that you see
Yeah,
that we need to kind of keep in mind?
maybe at the and I'll go back to like a lot of my calls with instructors, but I remember when I started thinking about ChatGPT and using ChatGPT for my feedback, I was very excited. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. This is a great tool. And then, when you're speaking with instructors, they think about so many different things that you as an entrepreneur, as a co-founder, you don't think about, because you think about this in a positive way, but there's so many things that can go wrong. And one of the ethical questions that I got, I still remember her asking me this, and I was just dumbfounded. I'm like, yeah, that's a good question. And what she said was, in the future, are we just gonna have students who's gonna use AI to write their assignments, and then me using AI to give feedback, and then them taking that feedback, putting it into to AI to improve their papers, and then me using AI to do grading and get feedback, and then they pass, and then they, get the degree. And then I'm like, I've never thought about that, but that is a really big, ethical question that we need to ask ourselves is how much do we allow for AI, and how much, there's pros and cons of anything, right? And I think that is an ongoing debate slash question that we will work out eventually. There will be, I think, negatives and roadblocks, and bad things will happen. But I think over time it's going to improve education. But that was one of the questions I still don't have an answer for.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, the best to the best. I think everybody will still, like, it's true, like everybody will be using AI, but maybe with taking them as our assistant, and then we can leverage the power of assistant to kind of go through the experience. Cool. Now let's kind of take a pause, and then let's pivot to the magical questions here. Um, I'm curious, when you were 12 or 11-year-old, what did you enjoy doing the most?
Yeah, I had to think about this because it was a long time ago. But I think for me, I think I just landed in Vancouver, and I was in my elementary. What I enjoyed doing the most was actually probably playing hockey. Yeah,
Hockey.
I'm not an athlete, but um, I think back in my uh, elementary school days, that was where I got introduced to hockey. That's where I, followed the Canucks, who's doing pretty well these days. And I got introduced to be playing a goalie, and then basically, I think during recess, lunchtime, after school, that's basically what I did, playing on the not on ice but on floor. So I was doing that. Um, Maybe a little bit of playing with friends. Yu-Gi-Oh at the time, I think that was 12, back old days, right? But those were the things that I was doing. I mean, apart from learning English and going to ESL classes, I think those activities really help me grow. With building a network of friends. But yeah, those were the days. Physical playing cards and sports. Imagine
Sure.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see a connection of you now and the you kind of years ago in that time?
When I was 12, I mean, I still watch hockey. I don't play it anymore because I'm not built for it. Obviously, as a short Asian person, I probably get squashed. But yeah, like I still have a passion for sports. I like to play card games and board games with friends. I think that's something I kept going. But it's really taught me, like, kind of to integrate into the culture as well here in Canada. And yeah, it's definitely helped build me as a person as well as those experiences.
Mm. So, do you have to overcome some sort of challenge in life to be who you are now?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I had a big challenge. I think there's my experience is the same with many other um, kids growing up. If I had to say like one challenge, it would probably be when I first moved here from China and immigrated to Canada. I think like the cultural shock and obviously language. I mean, I was ESL level 1 or level 2, so I couldn't talk. There was a lot of awkward moments where I get into trouble and I have no idea what's going on. People just look at me. I remember those days, but I think immigrating here as a young, what, 10-year-old. I think I was 10 at the time when I moved
Mm.
over here. There was just a lot of, you're trying to look for friends, you're trying to find where you belong. I think those are the challenges that I've had, but I'm glad that I immigrated here. It's taught me a lot, and it's given me different perspectives, right? From a Western perspective, also a I guess an Asian perspective. I don't know if that's the way you put it, but
Mm. Mm.
maybe that was one of the challenges that I had overcome since I'm still
Mm.
here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, similar. I've been through similar things, and I think it's common for anybody who's
yeah,
even moving to a different city. let alone a country. It's all like
Yeah, you lose all your
localization,
friends.
the process of localization
Yeah, like as a
on a
kid, the
human
toughest
level.
thing is it's the toughest thing is losing all your friends, right? Like you gotta go and make new friends. I think that was one of them. Like, why am I moving, mom? Why am I moving to Canada? I love my friends here. Like, no, sorry, you don't have a say in it. And then I moved. Yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah, not too bad. It turned out well. You're
Yeah,
building
it
a
turned out well.
startup with your new friends. That's excellent. So what do you think is your magic? Like, all these years, and
Yeah,
what is your magic that keeps you going?
magic. And this was one of the, I think, a hard question because again, like it was one of those questions in the interview. What is your biggest strength? Sounds easy, but it's actually very hard to answer. I think if it was me, working in higher ed for a while now, I'm not definitely not the most experienced, but speaking with so many students and instructors, TAs, instructional designers, I think I have a fairly good perspective on how everybody else thinks. Kind of putting myself in the shoes of an instructor and then a student, and then an instructional designer, a director, a dean. Having all those perspectives helps me understand what everybody's objectives are and how we can push things through, and how we can build a tool that really benefits students but also instructors. Because at the end of the day, in education, I think that the core product, yes, the students, but you also need instructors. So I think having the two perspectives is very important, and that's helped me find some success, in which I think I would need to maybe talk with even more students and instructors to continue improving my understanding of each side's perspective.
Mm, mm. Excellent. Thank you very much, Chris, for coming to our podcast. It's our honor to have you, and I've learned so much in that such short period of time.
It's always great chatting with you, Jenny. Again, I treated this more as a conversation, sharing some of my thoughts. I think it was just genuinely interesting, with all the AI and the possibilities, but also the pros and cons that we have to be careful of. And it's great to, talk to you, get some of your feedback as well. So love to keep it going. Continue chatting with you as well.
Excellent. Do you want to share some call outs, like some social links? People want it, anything that you want people to check
Oh, yes,
after
for sure.
this call.
If there's So right now we're working obviously with Timely Grader, and I don't know if that's Timely Grader, just two words, .ai. So that's kind of the feedback tool that we've been working on. If people want to check that out, feel free to do so. And you can find me at, on LinkedIn, just search Chris Du. And if you want to connect, have a conversation, if you're in higher ed or you're an entrepreneur, looking to, like me when I was 5 years ago, like me, wanted some advice for entrepreneurs, I'd be happy to chat, and share some insights too.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great. So is he awake now? He's asleep?
Yeah, he's at the door. He's sitting at the door. He's like,
Oh.
there's somebody here. I'm a guard dog, but he's actually, once you open the door, he just runs away. His only job is to alarm, and that's it.
Can I see him now? No.
Okay, Hugo, Hugo, come here. We'll have an extra guest. Yes,
Yes, yes, yes.
Hugo,
Welcome,
come here.
Hugo.
Come here. Up, up, up. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. This is Hugo.
Hi, Hugo.
Hugo, this is Hugo. Look over here.
Huge. Big.
Hugo.
Oh, look at you. Oh, like a big teddy bear.
He's a standard poodle.
Oh, Hugo.
Yeah,
Good to meet
when
you.
I'm stressed out, I utilize Hugo a lot. I just hug him,
Hug.
and he's just like,
Oh.
sure, I'll take it. I like hugs. Yeah.
We all
Hugo,
need
look over
some
here. Look over
Hugo
here.
friends.
Yes, Hugo, look over there.
Yes, yes.
Hugo's like, all right, get out
All
of here.
right, I'll
Oh,
head
he's
in
on my
now.
stomach.
Okay, okay,
All
good,
right,
good.
thanks. Thank
Thank
you,
you. Thank
Hugo.
you for
Thank
your
you, Hugo.
cooperation.
Yes. Yeah,
Excellent.
that's Hugo right there.
Hi. Hi, Hugo. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
He's gonna want pets now for a long time.
I think so, yeah. Oh, yeah, keep it coming. Great.